March is Women's History Month, and this is day 25 of talking about strong women, women you need to know. Today, let's talk about a Clarissa Harlow Barton, born December the 25th, 1821 in North Oxford, Massachusetts. You may know her as Clara Barton. She was the youngest of 5 children. Her father and mother were Stephen and Sarah Barton. She was the youngest of 5, and her father had been in the military, but was now a successful farmer. At 3 years old, her parents sent her off to school, and she excelled, it is said, at reading and spelling. By the time she was 10 years old, one of her brothers had had a terrible fall and had suffered a very traumatic head injury, and that began her life of caring for other people. She cared for him for a couple of years and learned to take care of him, give medicine, and things like that, what all he needed. She was painfully shy as a child, and it was suggested by a family friend and the parents. They thought that maybe if she became a teacher, that would help bring her out of that. So when she finished her schooling in 1838, at the young age of 18, she became a teacher. She also saw the need for everybody to have education, and the children of the workers at the mill where one of her brothers taught were not getting an education, and she helped with redistricting that made sure that they would be able to get an education as well, and started a school where those children could get an education. And that was when she was 24. Shortly after that, she moved to New Jersey and established another school. She established this time a free school, the first of its kind in all of New Jersey. That school grew to about 600, and she hired one other woman to help her, and they were quite successful with it. However, the school board did not think that that was something a woman could do, so they hired a man to do the job that she was already doing and told her she could stay on. She could just be his assistant. Oh, and they paid him twice as much. Needless to say, Miss Clara Barton did not like that, and she resigned and said, "I will never take less than a man." Anyway, by 1854, she had taken a position as a recording clerk at the U.S. Patent Office in Washington, D.C., and she was also the first female to ever be appointed to that position. She was paid $1,400 annually, which was the equivalent of almost $5,200, and yes, it was the same as her male counterparts. There was, however, a problem with that. The Secretary of the Interior at that time did not think women should be working in the government, and he demoted her to a copyist, and that also meant less pay. Unfortunately, in 1857, the Buchanan administration also eliminated her position completely. When President Lincoln took over as president in 1860, she came back to that job, however. The Civil War began in 1861, and she quit her job to go and tend to those who were in the field, the Union soldiers in need. She took care, and this was a big part of what she would do later that we're going to talk about. She would take supplies out into the field, whether that be medical supplies or helping them find housing, clothing, food, whatever it was. She helped the people in the field. She had seen, if there was a big battle, she was in it. She was seen on the field in Maryland, Virginia, South Carolina, and more. And at one point, one of the generals, even though she had no medical training, named her the head nurse. She continued this work, and later on, she joined, as things were dwindling down, she joined a gentleman by the name of Francis Gage in helping those who had been enslaved, helped them find their way as freed men and women. She worked to help them in the New World. And after the war, she also started helping people find their missing loved ones, whether they be deceased or not. She was in the field all the time helping not only the soldiers there, but she also was marking graves, and that helped her go on to be able to help people find their missing ones. And she started an organization called the Office of Missing Soldiers, where she helped people do that. She started that in about 1864 or 5, I believe. She did that for about 4 years, and in 1869 it was taking her toll not only on her physical health but on her mental health. She'd seen a lot. It was a civil war. And she decided to go to Europe for her health. Well, she ended up in Switzerland, and while she was there, she came across an organization called the International Red Cross. It had been established in 1864 in Geneva. She felt that was an organization that would suit America as well. So when she came back to America, she started writing. She started writing about it. She started creating pamphlets. She lectured and finally met with President Rutherford B. Hayes. And on May the 21st, 1881, the American Association of the Red Cross was formed. In June of that year, she became its president, and she held that position until 1904. In 1882, the U.S. joined the International Red Cross. As I said, she continued to work until 1904 with the Red Cross as its head, but she still worked in the field, her last time in the field being 1900. She went to national and international meetings. She still aided with the disasters herself. She helped people who were impoverished. She helped them in disasters that might be around. She helped with homelessness, and she wrote about it. And she testified before Congress at one point as well about what she'd seen in the war and how this was going to help and all that. In 1904, new leadership, the Red Cross was going, and there was new leadership. They were all male. And they decided that the woman who had founded the organization was a little too eccentric for it. They needed someone more professional to run a charitable organization. She resigned, but that was okay. She started another organization immediately, one called the National First Aid Association, and they helped people with preparedness and also created first aid kits. Needless to say, Miss Clara Barton, because of what she had experienced herself and what she had seen, was an ardent supporter of women's suffrage. She passed away April the 12th, 1912, at 90 years old of pneumonia. She lived in the same house as the Red Cross office was until it got so big she couldn't, and that was the home that she died in. My goodness. The organization that she ran, called the Office of Missing Soldiers, she ran that, and it was in a house on 7th Street in Washington, D.C., and she'd done that for 4 years. Well, when she decided she was going to go to Europe for her health, she locked the door behind her. That building stood there for a long time, and someone finally boarded up the 3rd floor where she had her office in 1913. In 1997, the building had been forgotten, and her work had been forgotten that she had done with the Office of Missing Soldiers, even though it had been recognized by Congress, and they had allocated her almost $600,000 in today's money. All the work that she did there, she walked off and left, and it eventually got boarded up. That was in 1913 when it was boarded up. But in 1999, that building had been set for destruction, and as the workers were checking that building, they opened the office that she had closed and someone had boarded up, and they found a treasure trove of memorabilia in American history. There were newspapers and signs and paperwork from all the works that she did trying to locate people. There were clothes and there were tents and all kinds of things from the Civil War era and all the work that she had done. Needless to say, that building was saved, and it is now ran by the National Museum of Civil War Medicine and opened in 2015, and you may go see it. As well, part of the legacy that Miss Clara Barton left us was not only the American Red Cross and this museum of things that she had done, but her home in Glen Echo, Maryland, became a National Historic Site in 1974, and it is the first dedicated to the achievements of a woman. So today, on day 25 of Women's History Month, we salute the amazing Miss Clara Barton. We salute you.